Alright guys, so we're outside and we're in the hatch right now, and so these are the things that you're going to need to get the job done. Obviously your spark plugs. Hey guys, it's your boy Shanus, and we're still here inside home base, and one thing I just want to jump into is that I'm going to give you a little bit of knowledge on the choice of spark plug that I went with, and the reason why you should be very careful and do your own research when it comes to choosing the plug that's right for you. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of stuff being thrown out there from old part numbers, new current factory part numbers, a very popular aftermarket NGK spark plug, and of course the coveted performance HKS spark plugs. The biggest disclaimer that I want to make before I continue with anything is that if you put any spark plug besides the OE one inside your vehicle, there is a very high chance, and the majority of dealerships will void your warranty for that. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is that right off the bat, that eliminates the HKS spark plugs and even that very popular NGK part number that I'm going to be going into in a moment. Number two, spark plug installs aren't that necessarily hard, so while I do 100% recommend that you hear me out and my reasoning and the research that I did, if you really don't want to listen to me, then obviously fast forward to the spark plug install and get that out of the way. But like I said, it would be really a good idea just to hear me out, because I would hate for you to get the wrong spark plug number, especially by going to like an auto parts store and they just give you, hey, this is what our system says is good, put that in your car, and then you have trouble a few miles down the road. So with that out of the way, let's get straight into the spark plugs that I'm going to be installing into the vehicle today. And so today, the factory spark plugs that I'm installing are obviously the NGK ones, these nice laser iridiums. I'm using these ones for many reasons. One, obviously it's the factory recommended, but the one thing that I do have to bring up is that, especially for those of you that have 2013 models or have done spark plug changes before, you'll know it's probably not a strange thing by now that the 2013 model is regarded as kind of a lemon, had a lot of performance issues, and while there's a lot of documented reasons on why that is, spark plugs played a big role in that. One thing to mention is that for those of you that might have seen the term thrown around, there is such a thing as spark plug heat ranges, and that one used what was referred to as a heat range of 6. Hyundai themselves realized that that wasn't a good choice, and it was a little too cold of a plug, so they later updated the part number universally to these ones that I have right here, which is a heat range of 7. As mentioned before, I've done my homework. I've looked up countless different things just to make sure that I got the right plugs, called 4 to 5 different dealerships, and they all gave me this particular part number. So if you always want to be safe, dealerships will give you their obvious internal part number. That's basically their stock number, but I asked them if they could provide me with the actual NGK part number, and to that they gave me this really long one that's up here. But for those of you guys that want to know what the stock number is for NGK, it is 93655, as you can see right there, 93655. It's gone blurry again. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because if you've done any kind of research or looked for spark plugs, especially in the aftermarket, a popular part number from a ton of different shops is going to pop up, and that is the NGK 1422. And while there's nothing really bad to say about that particular plug, that is a heat range of 8 as opposed to these, which are a heat range of 7. Do your research, go on forums, do whatever it is that you need to do and make your own opinion about it while looking it up, because that was the default plug that I was going to actually buy. There were some people that didn't have the best experience with them, and it seems like a lot of people preferred using those if they were perhaps running an aggressive setup like full bolt-on, or even those who had some sort of tune. Some people did have bad experiences with lower gas mileage for obvious reasons and just not the best reliability with them. That influenced my decision to go with the OE ones as opposed to getting those. So again, that's just my opinion, but it did seem like I read enough posts where people were having issues with them if they didn't require that extra heat range level. So that choice will ultimately be up to you. Same thing with the HKS performance plugs. They make 2 that they recommend for our car. One for basically stock applications and another for tuned applications. And same thing, part of the reasoning being is heat ranges. So do your own homework, but keep in mind that running a 1422 and the HKSs, for obvious reasons, will likely highly void your warranty if you still have one. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I wanted to get out of the way, is the choice of these. The last note before I go to install these plugs that I do want to bring up, and this is a huge shout out to a fellow viewer and good friend, Tim. He did let me know of these brand new spark plugs that NGK is offering. They are kind of the latest trend when it comes to spark plug materials. They're referred to as NGK rutheniums. Before I jump into that, I do want to let you guys know that there will always be new technology and new trends and fads when it comes to any kind of car technology. If you've been around cars long enough, the first thing was platinum spark plugs, then they went to dual electrode nodes, then to the 4-tip, which was something that Bosch came up with, and then finally to our current set where they went from iridium to laser iridium. So again, ruthenium is the newest thing that they've come out with. I don't have much experience with them, and to be completely clear, for some of the Veloster models, they don't even list it, a part number for it. They only list a part number for the older ones and for the naturally aspirated models. So for the time being, I'm not going to jump into those because they're kind of unknown, uncharted territory for the time being. Will they be better and offer a performance upgrade? We don't know yet. I mean, if you see all the marketing material, they look like they're obviously somewhat better and that they have better technology and just better efficiency for the most part. But we're not sure how that'll translate to performance gains, or even if it's a smart idea to have something like that in a modified vehicle. So for those of you that are going to chime in about, hey, what do you think of ruthenium spark plugs? My answer to that right now is I'm not quite sure. So we'll just wait and see. I'll keep my ears open and get some feedback, and maybe one day we'll do an update vehicle. But now that I got the choice of spark plugs out of the way and the reason why I didn't get the coveted 1422s and I'm sticking to these, and also why I didn't get the HKS ones, now you guys know. Again, please do your own research, stay educated. Hopefully this will help you stay a little bit informed. But let's go downstairs and get this install done. Alright guys, so we're outside and we're in the hatch right now, and so these are the things that you're going to need to get the job done. Obviously your spark plugs. It's up to you if you decide to use anti-seize. I'll tell you a story while I'm doing the install why I use it. You're obviously going to need your ratchet, an extension. You're going to need your actual 5/8 spark plug socket to make sure to remove these spark plugs and install the new ones. A 10mm, of course. A spark plug gap tool to make sure that you have the right spark plug gaps, and perhaps a smaller extension to assist with removing the bolt holding down the coils. Not necessary, but might give you a little better leverage than having the longer one. It's up to you, but let's go straight under the hood to show you what we have to deal with. It's a beautiful windy day, so if you get some wind noise, please, I'm sorry. But so a few things that you're gonna have to deal with. Obviously the coil packs. So each individual coil has a 10mm bolt that you're going to have to remove. The only other part that I feel might give you a little bit of hard time is this particular coil, just because the high pressure fuel pump cable is kind of right above it. Lastly, huge disclaimer for doing this, it is very well known that these connectors brittle very easily and snap and break. They are actually part of the wiring system, so if you do manage to accidentally break one, there's really no way of fixing it. So just be very careful. I'm going to be praying right now that I don't accidentally break one myself. So with that being said, let's start removing. Oh, also, this is preference. It is recommended that when you do anything that's concerning electrical on the car, that you unplug at least the negative terminal or unplug the battery as a whole. Again, that is recommended. Don't kill me. I'm personally not going to do it. There's tons of people that don't do it when they replace spark plugs. So if you want to be extra cautious, absolutely do so. It's obviously your choice. Alright, so first things first is removing the connectors from the plugs, the coils. And as you can see, I've already done the first one, so I'm going to show you. It's not hard. This little gray locking mechanism, you're going to gently pull out. So there you heard the clip come out. And then essentially what you do once you do that is you press down on it and it'll just come right out. So now once that step is done, is with your wrench, 10mm, make sure it's off. You line it up with the bolt and then just start wrenching off. And obviously repeat for all four. So I would personally recommend doing each one by one, and I would actually be very careful that you do this because these bolts, the last thing you want is to have them fall when you're removing them. So again, you'll just pull it out. It'll make a little satisfying pop sound, which I already did. And then make sure to set this somewhere non-conductive. Not like it's plugged in, but again. And now we can go in and do the spark plug. And so now the spark plug's actually out, and this is why, well, of course, this is why you change your spark plugs. These ones have definitely seen better days. And keep in mind, I'm still under 30,000 miles. The car is approximately 3 years old, but still good enough reason to change these plugs out. Oh yeah, fun fact. So when you remove these plugs, after you remove them, I know this is gonna sound funny, but make sure to set these down on the floor or somewhere that's not anywhere near your windshield. Some of you guys may not know, but ceramic has a interesting chemical property that when met with glass, it'll easily shatter. So the last thing you want to do is set these down and just accidentally destroy your windshield. So again, once removing these, even with the stock plugs, don't put them anywhere near your windshield or other glass. All right, so before putting in the next spark plug, you want to make sure that it's gapped properly. All of these spark plugs are technically pre-gapped, but the old person in me likes to double check. So that's where this little gapping tool comes in. And the stock gap size for the spark plugs should be 0.028. I just verified, inserted this little edge. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that it's not focusing. So you insert the edge in between those two, in between the little gap and the diode, and make sure that it's at 0.028. Alright, so if you're like me and you went with the route of putting anti-seize, I know this looks like a mess and it looks like a ton, but essentially all you want to do is put the slightest dab, and then with a Q-tip or like a napkin, try to kind of wrap it around the threads. I usually recommend just doing it in the center portion. Don't do it all over. Definitely don't do it near the top where the actual ignition happens, and try not to do it too close to the bottom. Just the center portion is fine. So let me smear this real quick. Alright, and then so once smeared, should look something like that, just inside the threads, down the middle. And then now to put back in and tighten. So a few things when you put it back in. I know this sounds like really obvious, but make sure you put it in centered. There have been a time where people somehow get the spark plug in there somehow offset, and that is not fun, especially when it comes time to remove. So I'm just hand tightening it until it gets to the point where I'll need the actual wrench. And then there's a big argument about this, but whether to torque spark plugs or not, especially because you don't really need a lot of force and you don't want to over tighten. So in this case, I'm going to assume that a lot of you guys don't have a torque wrench, even though they're relatively cheap. If you do torque, look up the specs, but I'm going to basically, once it's hand tight, so right here, I feel hand tight. So they basically say just do a quarter turn past hand tight and no more. So I'm not going to do exactly a quarter turn. Actually, yeah, just to be safe. So there we have it. Just a little bit under a quarter turn. And just for sake, I'm going to test it, make sure that it's not coming off easy. So again, just gentle, normal hand pressure, and we're good. All right, so last step is you put the coil in, make sure that it seats, and make sure that this little bottom edge seats. So yeah, you'll hear that little suction part, and then you should be able to easily hand tighten this bolt. So yeah, we are in business. So now we just have to hand tighten, and obviously when we're ready, replug it up. All right, so home stretch, we're on the last one. The last one, well, I don't need to remove this connector as I originally thought. You do need to remove the hose that's going there. So in my case, I have catch can. So yeah, I just removed that hose. If you're still running stock, it'll be the intake hose that's connected there. So once you do that, it'll give you ample room to actually get this in, because otherwise, as you can see, it's a really tight fit. Yeah. Alright, so last step, we're pretty much done with the install. Just make sure that you put the bolts back on each individual coil, hand tight. Again, don't overdo it. The last thing you want to do is snap a bolt. Make sure that everything else is reconnected, like the hose here and this connector, obviously if you unplugged it. Make sure that each individual coil plug is plugged in, and then essentially I would say just TLC, clean up some of the dust, put back the engine cover, and then go for a test drive. Alright, so I'm inside the car, and this isn't anything necessarily crucial to making sure you did the job right. However, I've had a very rough cold start ever since I've owned the car. Seeing the plugs in the condition that they were leads me to believe that that could have been the case. The car runs beautifully, but the plugs obviously needed a replacement. So this is gonna be a cold start. Hopefully the car doesn't have the same issue. Otherwise, clearly it's gonna be something else, maybe some coils. But let's go ahead and turn this bad boy on real quick. So it still has that little roughness, as you can kind of hear. There's kind of the lightest of maybe popping and backfiring. Again, I'm pretty sure part of it also has to do with the blow-off valve, because there's just a difference in tension as far as keeping it closed. However, the car did start off really smooth, much lower idle than it normally does. So I'm gonna go warm it up for a test drive and just kind of let you know my overall impressions after I'm done. Alright guys, so we're back at home base, and I just test drove the car, and my goodness, again, keep in mind, I baby the car. I drive it spiritedly, but I'm not the kind of guy to be constantly doing wide open throttle pulls or stuff like that. I clearly don't race the car, but I do love knowing the fact that if I need the car to have that extra oomph, it has it. With that being said, my car is along the edge of that 30,000 mile marker, so technically I didn't need the plugs. I mean, if you think about it mileage wise, the plugs should have still had quite a bit more life. But I will let you know this is, after test driving it, the car just opens up. And obviously it was gonna do something. Brand new spark plugs, brand new anything that has been corroded or dirtied in some way or form will obviously bring some new performance to the vehicle. But seeing the difference in the fact that the car smoothly went through the power band, minus obviously the typical traction control kicking in, but everything was just smooth in between shifts and everything. It was just amazing. I honestly wasn't expecting that big of a difference, especially like I mentioned, because the fact is the plugs weren't that old. So if you haven't done so and you're anywhere beyond 25,000 miles, I would probably just do it. I mean, honestly, it's a small price to pay. I was able to get the plugs for in between 40 to 50 bucks with taxes and shipping. So it's not a huge investment. And obviously it's something that's gonna, contribute to the longevity of your vehicle. So with that being said, guys, I know for those of you hardcore guys, this is kind of a dumb video to make because who doesn't know how to, replace spark plugs. But again, believe it or not, I've had questions about where to buy the replacement spark plug wires for, and if our cars even use spark plugs. So not everybody is as knowledgeable as you are. And again, I'm not saying this to bash on anybody, but hopefully this was helpful. And regardless on your argument of the removal of the battery, the anti-seize threading compound, or even the fact of torquing things down in the gap, you know what, hopefully this was somewhat educational to you. And if you already know how to do spark plugs, hopefully the first segment about which plugs to go with for your vehicle would be the right ones for you. Like I mentioned, obviously if you're tuned or heavily modified, you might want to go with performance plugs, because at that point you probably don't care about warranty. If you're lightly modded or not modded at all and you're wondering what plugs are the right ones to get, and you've been looking in the aftermarket, again, I might sway you away from the 1422s and just go with the OE plugs. But that's it, guys. That wraps things up. Quarantine is kind of easing off, so I've been able to get more car parts and things to start doing to the vehicle again. You will see a few videos that might not be intended for the hardcore crowd. Again, these are just things that I've actually had people ask me that I'm creating videos to educate, because if one person asks the question, there's a really good chance that there's at least a handful of other people that are asking the same thing and just haven't reached out or don't know where to look for it. So again, guys, you'll be seeing a lot more videos finally, but as always, thank you for all the love and support. Keep doing you. I've been seeing a lot of progress on some of your guys' builds. It's so cool to see you guys get new goodies and stuff. And at the same time, it's inspiring me because it lets me know of brands that I may have never known or different directions that I might want to take the vehicle on. But with that all said and done, as always, keep doing you guys. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Look, this is the section after everything where I'm supposed to give you a teaser, and I do have a teaser. For those of you guys that are OGs and have been with me for a while, you're probably going to be wondering why I'm going with this, but I actually have two videos that I want to kind of address with this. One is a question that I think a lot of people have had at one point or another, and two, I'm really excited for this because this is supposed to be just better than what I have. So yeah, check this little bad boy out. And you'll see it in the review, but this boxing and this presentation, as opposed to other products similar to this, it's just amazing. It's nuts. See you guys with this, maybe not in the next video, but hopefully within the next month or so.